My name is Lonnie Schlein. I'm a former photojournalist with the New York Times for nearly 4 decades, and I've been out the last number of years freelancing and working on various projects. One of the things I've been doing rather regularly for the last 6-7 years is working as the official photographer for the Biennales in both Canciano in Tuscany and in London. And one of the best things that's happened to me at those Biennales is my opportunity to have met many, many artists and to befriend many of them. And one of my best friends and favorite artists is Kirsten Hoest. And I'm in fact with her right now in her studio outside of Copenhagen. And we're going to talk. And Kirsten, tell me, let's start with the very beginnings, okay? You, as I said already, I think you are a wonderful artist. Your use of colors is phenomenal, and you're doing something, as far as I know, that no other artist I've met are doing. It's very unusual and strikingly beautiful. But I'm not a critic. I'm here to talk to you. Yeah. So, tell me how you started. How you got involved in the art world, and not the art world, but how you became an artist, at what age, and sort of continue from there.
I think very much one is born an artist, and it depends very much on your circumstances, how you develop. And I believe that great artists can be born and without ever using their talent and get buried again. I think it has a lot to do with your environment and encouragement and opportunities. So,
when did people outside of your close circle begin to see your art and appreciate it? How old were you?
The first round was in the 80s in London.
Right.
And then you can say the second round started in New York at Art Expo, and then I was a lot in Italy.
Okay.
And then I finally last year came to London Art Biennale, which has brought so many lovely things with it. First of all, some wonderful friends in the art world, which has meant a lot to me.
As I have made the same experience.
Same things, yes,
right.
yes.
Yeah.
I've been very, very positive, very grateful for that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I believe very much in the importance of art, as of course we all do, but also when I was in my 30s I read a lot of Russian literature, and I loved Dostoevsky, and he says at some point only beauty can save the world. That I have written inside my skull, and I believe very much in expressing, of course expressing yourself and what you have inside yourself, and to be searching and find beauty in various ways, and if you can convey that to other people, it's a great how can I say, it's a great reward. That I think there's a value in the fact of creating something beautiful.
Mm-hmm. How would you think that now is really the most important time of your creativity?
It has, above all, it's taken me so many years to peel off. I'm like an onion. You peel an onion layer by layer,
exactly.
Believing in authority, believing this was right, this was wrong. I have never, up to now, believed in that whatever I produced and reflected who I am, that was good enough.
Right.
So it's taken me all these years to come to this point. And I don't look back on it and say, oh, that's horrible. I say, no, it's fine, it's taken this long time, because along the road I've studied so many different things. In year 2000, I was in a spiritual center in New Zealand, and I happened to look at a book in the library which jumped out to me about mandalas. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I started studying the mandalas, and from that I went into sacred geometry. Mm-hmm. And reconstructing all the old churches and whatever it could be, old things from Egypt or whatever, I reconstructed it. Then all these figures happened to turn up. I don't know where they came from, but they just happened to come. Mm-hmm. So that's been my road up to now, to explore geometry and
right. And clearly that's what initially attracted me when I first laid eyes upon your works. The geometry just struck something within me. How do you see the next years progressing? Do you have any? I mean, I can't imagine you really have specific ideas, but how would you like to move forward and perhaps change or continue at the moment? You did say you're an onion, so there are many layers still to come.
I'm far from finished. I think very much when I look back on my work over the years, I've had sort of these somewhere between 5 and 8 years where I have focused on something, as I've done now with since 2010 with the geometry. And I can feel I'm brewing with something new. You can say I'm pregnant with some new ideas,
right.
And I hope
don't tell me what they are.
No, I can't because as I found the figures in geometry, I know I'm going into a new searching and find something. Maybe I'll be disappointed and just throw it out. I don't know, but I know I must go on searching because it is, as Pollack says, that it's really. An artist is reflecting on what he or she is. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And the courage in that, Balzac always talked about courage for artists, has to do, of course, with if you really, really come to a point where you dare be yourself, you'll also have to face what's coming out, and maybe it's not so nice, you don't know. Mm-hmm, no? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm always fascinated by the process of creativity in itself, and how the artistic mind works in these directions that you said. To me, it's incomprehensible. As a photographer, it's of course a very different world. But as an artist, you sit down with this passion, these fantasies, and how can you develop? You know what I'm? How does it happen? How does the process move along from the very first strokes to the? Is there a way to describe that in?
I think it has a lot to do with daring to surrender. And that's what I have been fighting so much with my life. I thought, well, you have to paint a landscape, it has to be so and so, and this is right and this is wrong. To peel all that off and just play. You spend your whole life from being a child, then you mature, and then you do that, and this is right or wrong. And you fight the whole way when you're older to become a child again. And just be yourself and let it happen. Mm-hmm. If you can, avoid using...
Okay, that's very,
Avoid using your brain. You need to use your heart and your stomach and your feeling and not thinking. And that is probably the worst of it all. But then I listen a lot to music. Music gives me courage. When I listen to what I like to call the heavy guys, it can be Mahler, Bruckner, it can be Brahms and Sibelius and whatever, and it can be opera, Verdi, Puccini, and all of them. It depends on my moods, but I know sometimes when I go in the studio in the morning, because you have to go. It's not a question of waiting for inspiration, then you can wait forever. Mm-hmm. You have to prepare the soil as when you're putting new plants down, you have to. And then music is very important, and maybe one morning I really need the Triumph March of Aida to get going, and another morning I need to be calm and listen to Mozart.
That was going to be my other questions related to music. So do you actually listen to music while you paint?
Always.
Oh, you do?
Always.
Oh, okay. I did not. I assumed that you listen to music at various times of the day.
No,
you absorb it, but you don't. Because you did talk about needing quiet. And I assume that meant people, telephones interrupt you.
You have to turn that one off. Yeah.
Right, but music does not at all interrupt your
No, it's like, how can I describe that? That's like being together with a good friend. And of course there are composers you feel more close to than others, and also over long life you have a lot of memories connected to works of music, but again, that's a very fact of the same. It has to do with beauty, because I believe very much in beauty's power of healing. I think beauty is healing for the soul. Mm-hmm. And I have been lucky and very grateful that people looked at my work and also exhibitions. They have said, oh, I become so calm. I feel such harmony in my heart when I look at your work, and that's the best they can say to me, because we live in a very difficult world, and we are bombarded with information all the time. So it's very difficult to to be relaxed and just be.
There are many artists out there who are self-absorbed and obsessed with their own art, and they're more or less with blinders, and many of those people will paint on commission to be able to live. And many artists are totally the opposite. They create because they must, because it's inside of them.
Yeah.
They have no interest while they paint, whether they're going to sell a painting or not.
Many years ago, I remember we had a member of our parliament who said a sentence I've never forgotten. I was probably in my 20s when he said it. He said, "It doesn't matter who writes the poetry. What matters is poetry is written." Mm-hmm. And I can say the same exactly.
You said this about artists, right?
Yeah, and say that on some level, it doesn't matter if it's your name or my name that's a signature on that painting. What's important is that painting has been created.
Right.
But we all have to live, of course, and that's natural. And you can say that if your life is so that you can paint until you die, and you can still have something to eat, that's okay. I appreciate that. But I also think that if you only discuss your own work and your only interest in your own thing, it can become a kind of blindness, a kind of corridor.
That's exactly what
and,
it is. Yeah.
In 2010, I spent half a year in Perugia and Firenze, and I studied the Renaissance, of course, and also later I went to Accademia dell'Arte in Firenze because I wanted to experience how did they paint 500 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I did, and it was just a wonderful feeling to sort of start with the teachers many years ago. And I think we are all members of people who have come into the world to make it a more beautiful place, and you can call it a calling or something, because I don't know what you will call it. I'm very afraid of using too big words, but it's something you can't help it. It's like breathing. Mm-hmm. You're not well if you don't create. Mm-hmm. And I know many people who feel like that. And then very often over this century, women have come through. But in the older days, it's very difficult for women. They still have to look after the children, they still have to do the house and so forth. Mm-hmm. Now you can choose another direction. Yes. But the value in painting, to me, lies in its message, of course, because you say something from your own subconscious when you work. We know everything in our subconscious, we just can't get it up in the conscious. So that is a way of moving it from one level to the other. Mm-hmm. And I would say through my work, I have understood a lot of things about myself. In the beginning, when I made all the paper collages, papier collé, etc., it could take me 6 months and I could look back on a picture and say, that's how I felt at that point. Now I understand it. Right. And then that interval shortened and shortened and shortened. And now if I go to the canvas, I know how I feel, I can see it. Right. Yeah.
How would you describe the Kirsten Hoest from 30 years ago, or even 40 years ago, to Kirsten Hoest today in May of 2018? Artistically, of course.
Artistically, I'm not afraid anymore, and I believe that I have a talent, big or small or whatever, but I have something to work with, I have something to develop, and I hope that I can develop it much, much further than where I am today. It's a great privilege to be able to express yourself, but there's also a great responsibility how you're doing it.
Correct.
Because you influence other people.
Of course you do, very much so. And do you feel how can you define the exhilaration that you feel when your painting day has been a successful one?
If you one day have succeeded in achieving something you have just dreamt of, then you go to bed with a very good feeling.